Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. We are back on the Legal Lounge. We're so excited to have my dear friend, Lynn, who is not only a divorce coach, but she does a number of different coaching roles in her profession. Lynn, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Theresa. I'm so excited to be here on this podcast, and I'm excited to share some really amazing and incredible tools to help people survive divorce. I'm a divorce coach, and I absolutely love to just share these tools with other people because I'm a two-time divorce survivor myself. Yes, I did do that twice.
Yeah.
But I learned all these amazing things because I decided to not let the things affect me emotionally to a deep level where I really didn't have the chance to survive.
Yeah.
And so I really made it my mission to dig in, do the self-work, do the healing, and really come back and help other people because that's my passion, is helping people shift their mindset to be able to live their best life.
And I will say, as the founder of Modern Legal, where part of the reason I even wanted to create the Modern Legal team was to empower not only each other in our community, but our clients. I think it is imperative to have those tools in place for our clients to work with someone such as yourself, not only with the personal experience, but also the professional development you've gone through to help someone.
Absolutely. And being a mother of two children that are grown, and also just the gamut of divorce things that you have to walk through. You know, I've experienced, being in the courtroom for a full day, taking the stand, doing some really crazy things. And so again, not just little bits of divorce that I've experienced, but really the whole gamut.
Yeah.
Of the first appointment with your attorney to, the final, decision and rolling out the plan and how you're going to see your kids and all of the stuff that kind of comes along the way.
Yeah. And that's huge because I think a lot of people are looking for that advice and don't know where to turn.
Absolutely. And, I'll say when I went through it, I went to counselors, I went to church clergy, I went to family and friends, and each of them had some really great advice to give. But all of it was kind of hinted with a lot of emotions for me and with me instead of giving me the tools to be better at what I was going through. So I think that was really what stemmed my passion for wanting to help other people and then just developing those tools along the way.
So let's jump into what a role as a divorce coach entails. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. So, I think the first time you should reach out to a divorce coach is when you're contemplating divorce. I mean, a lot of us choose divorce. We know that there are things that are not great in the marriage. Whatever has happened and we choose it, or some of us are delivered it, right? We didn't ask for it, but boom, there it is, and you have to deal with it. And so I think, when you kind of know that that's the direction that it's taking, if you have the chance, reach out, because that's when those emotions are really just kind of hitting the crest of freak out. What do I do next?
Yeah.
What attorney do I, go and speak to? And I think that is a big part of it because, attorneys you need that connection with your attorney.
Yeah.
And so just having a group of attorneys in my mind of who needs to go to who and what personalities match. I think that's one of the really great things that I have to offer, along with being able to manage those emotions, saying the right things at the right time, and then kind of making those checklists that you need to make. Who do you need to meet with next? Is it a CDFA to find out your financials? Just a lot of the things that you need to do kind of in that first step of thinking about divorce.
That's a great point because as a family law attorney, I obviously am looking at the letter of the law.
Yes.
And lawyers, I'll give us an honest, analysis where we tend to be very narrowly focused.
Black and white.
Black and white, if you will, at the letter of the law. And so clients will come to us and they'll come to us with a lot of emotional information. And as an attorney, I'll be like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I hear you. I do care about you, but I don't care. Why? Because from a legal perspective, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But on the flip side, when I hand, say, a list of documents that I need from my client, for me, it seems relatively black and white. Yeah, I just need X, Y, Z. But you as a divorce coach, you can actually sit down with that person and say, yes, your attorney does need these documents. And here's kind of why. And here's how we can get them. And here's how, we can deal with the emotions that go along with it. I've seen time and time again where I'll ask for, say, retirement documents from one client and they'll burst into tears because they're like, I don't know. I don't know if we have any. And so how do you see that as the divorce coach?
So many emotions attached to those documents. So many emotions like, oh my gosh, you have to pull, a year's worth of bank statements. Mm-hmm. Some people may not know how to do that, may have not, gone on the web and found those things, or just having to do that is like some closure that they just weren't ready to do. Like, we're going to separate these things out, kind of whatever comes with that. And so, it does feel really good to help people say, you know what, it's just do it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a minute in one of the 5 steps of surviving divorce, but like, just do it. Like, one foot in front of the other, try to table the emotions around certain things so that you can get on the right track with your attorney and get them what they need. So super important.
So you just noted our next topic of conversation, which I absolutely love. When you told me about these steps, I was like, we should put these on a billboard and publish them on the front page of every publication out there, including the New York Times. So if you're listening from New York Times, let us know.
Yes,
give us a plug. But let's go over those 5 steps to surviving divorce. And real quick, 1, mind control of your own mind.
Yes, very important.
2, work that core, and we're not talking about your physical core. 3, JFDI, which we will explain in a moment.
Little
4,
mystery.
Raise the vibe. And then 5, future you principle.
Yes.
So let's start with that first one, the mind control one.
Yeah. So mind control, I love just saying that because people are like, ooh, what's that? People lean in, but not over other people. This is not manipulation. This is you being able to control your mind. And a lot of times we don't think about the fact that, in divorce, there's so many things that are out of our control, right? The law is pretty black and white. We may want to see our kids more than what the law is going to allow us, between our ex or soon-to-be ex-spouse. And so just having the opportunity to know that you get to make a choice in any given moment as to how you react to something. So one of the first things is to realize when you're in fight or flight. When we get in a fight or flight situation, we are not able to access those parts of our brain that allow us to think creatively, that allow us to make good decisions, because our bodies kind of bring us into that survival mode, if you will. And so one of the things that you can do is to take a couple deep breaths, right? When we get stressed out, we either shorten our breath or we hold our breath. And when our brains don't have the oxygen they need, we don't make great decisions.
We can't think.
Yeah. Right. And, a lot of people want like a pill for that or, this for that, but it's like, it's free. It's the breath. We have it all the time. We have the access to it no matter where we are. And, I'll take you really quickly. I remember being in court for that day of, craziness.
Yeah.
And sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? My throat is like closed up. My heart's beating. And I was like, wait a minute, the breath. Let me just anchor in the breath. Taking those deep breaths in, I was like, okay, I got this. This is not normal, but I've got this. Like, I can make good decisions now. So that's the first thing in mind control, controlling your own.
I love that. And that's really at any point, whether you're in a courtroom or maybe you're in mediation, or maybe you're just sitting with your attorney and everything that's coming at you just seems overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a great way to reset. And again, like you said, a lot of clients come in. I remember my first appointment with my attorney, and I sat there and she said one question and I just lost it. Just tears everywhere. And so, and it's okay to let the tears out. I always say like emotion is energy in motion. And sometimes you just got to let it out, So take a pause, step outside, get your tears out, regroup, take your breath, and then come back in.
There's no conversation more romantic than discussing a prenup with your partner, right? Okay, maybe the song for your first dance does a bit more in the romance department. Speaking of emotions, though, the prenup is a very legal document that everyone has a very emotional reaction to. Many people avoid the prenup conversation because they feel it is an indication that the marriage will fail. But here's the truth. Half of all marriages already fail, regardless of whether the spouses had the prenup conversation or not. If you or someone you care about is getting married, would knowing what marriage involves legally be important? What about having the difficult conversations surrounding finances, career aspirations, and pursuing parenthood prior to the wedding date? If you are looking to build a solid foundation for your marriage, or you want the same for someone you care about, we are here to help you learn more about prenups from a position of knowledge, not emotion. To learn more about family law from a legal professional, book a consultation with a member of the Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal services at modernlegalnc.com. So the second one is work that core, and we don't mean your physical core, right?
No, but exercise is really great when
Yes.
you're going through stress.
That's true.
But when I'm talking about core, I'm talking about your core values. What is important to you? It's really important to get clear about what really is important to you when you're about to go through divorce, because when you sit down with your divorce attorney and you're like, hey, I really care about Christmas. Christmas is one of my core value things, my family. I want to spend really important time with them. Maybe one of your core values is you like things, like the things in your house.
Yeah.
That's okay too. And so what are the things in your house that you are really attached to and what things don't matter? So then that gives you and your attorney a really great place to start as to how you're going to talk about that separation agreement and who gets what and, the things that are important. So I think it's, writing those lists down. What are those core values that really are important to you?
And I'll note there, it's a judgment-free zone when you're talking to your attorney, your divorce coach,
Absolutely.
even through these negotiation processes. And I want to stress that because if you don't talk about, say, the, antique that you inherited from your grandmother because, your lawyer just doesn't know to ask for that, whether it's at mediation or in a courtroom, and you regret it later, there's no turnbacks. So it's really important to identify that upfront.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, one of the other points too is think about that before you're sitting in that office. It's you have that alone time with yourself to think through like step by step what needs to happen so that you have a really productive appointment with your attorney.
Yeah. The third one, JFDI. What does that stand for?
Just freaking do it.
Yeah. And we'll keep it PG, at least for now.
We will keep it PJ, but yeah, PG.
And when it gets really frustrating, yes, it's the other F word. But just freaking do it. What does that mean in your role?
Well, it really means that, when we get caught up in our emotions, when we get caught up in all the things that are swirling around us with separation and divorce, sometimes we just need to put one foot in front of the other and just get it done. Like you said before about the bank statements or the tax documents or the stuff that just feels really heavy, not fun stuff, right? Nobody wants to go and pull all that stuff and send it over. It's not fun. It's like buying a house, right? But you have to, there's certain things in divorce that you really just have to, one foot in front of the other. We're just going to march through this. We're going to take the emotion, table it for a minute, and really focus on what needs to get done.
Yeah. And avoidance is a common characteristic that we see in everyone going through this process.
Yes.
And yes, there may be times where I'll tell my clients, I say, okay, it's Friday. Don't worry about any of this. Let all this stuff weigh on my shoulders or my team's shoulders. But come Monday, I need you to show up.
Yeah.
And so, you can take that break, but you can't avoid it forever.
Right. I love that. And I love that you kind of give them a little bit of slack, but then also I'm going to give you a boundary and a deadline also. So that does help.
Yeah.
But just freaking do it.
Yeah.
Some things you just have to do it.
Yep. All right. The next one, number 4, raise the vibe.
Yeah, raise the vibe. Anytime you are going through, this is not just in separation divorce. This is all of us. Music brings a certain levity to any situation, right? If you listen to certain music when you're sad and it's sad music, you're just going to go down that path. If you listen to your fight music, right? And you put it on and you're jamming and you're just getting ready for stuff. If you are going through divorce and you have this, sad kind of depression, you feel it. It's kind of sitting on you. Find your favorite song. find your favorite playlist and just jam it in the house. Like, even if you don't feel like dancing, even if it just brings you up a couple levels, find those things. And there are a ton of playlists out there. I've had somebody else help me kind of make a couple great playlists for separation and divorce that really just, will get you out of that feeling of depression and bring you back to where you need to be.
I was going to say, I'm going to share a quick story which I think you'll appreciate is I remember to the bar exam. The bar exam in North Carolina is in Raleigh, and I was living not in Raleigh at the time. And so I was traveling too, and you're trying to do your last minute studies, and your head is, not necessarily in the game because you're so nervous. You've only, studied in law school for 3 years, and then add another 3 months where, bar prep was your job, more than a 9-to-5 job. And I remember driving in, parking in the parking lot, and I see all these people getting in line. And by the way, you can't bring anything. You can only bring like your ID, a pen. They're very limited. And I remember people packing up stuff, maybe even looking at flashcards at the last minute. And I remember starting to have those anxiety feelings rising. Yes. And I was like, you know what? F this, right? And I rolled down my windows. It was a relatively warm morning, and I rolled down my windows and I jammed Eye of the Tiger. Yes. And I'm sitting there like, not looking at any more study materials, and we're getting into the headspace.
Yes.
And then I got into line, and some people were like, were you just playing Eye of the Tiger? I'm like, I sure was. Let's get this done, ladies and gentlemen. And to your point, changing the vibe, because that vibe before and after that specific song was totally different for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I give full credit to that song for passing the bar exam, but I mean, there's something to be said for having that changed attitude, that changed vibe going into something very difficult.
Absolutely. And I'll say I'm a nerd for neuroscience, and I always want to know, like, what's happening in the mind, what's happening in the brain, when we do those things. And there are so many studies out there that show if you play that upbeat music, how it really does shift even the energetics of your body in that moment. So it may have been that song that helped you pass the bar.
At least get the extra point to pass, right?
It took the anxiety offline for a moment, so you to access all the stuff that you'd studied. So
for sure.
I love that.
And then finally, number 5, the future you principle.
Yeah. So the future you principle is, realizing that this moment of your life, whether it be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, however long, hopefully it's less than that you're going through this process, is not going to be like that forever. Right. I mean, when we get stuck in the day to day and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't take it. We're not thinking about what about in 5 years? What about in 10 years? Where am I? What am I feeling? And so the future you principle is where I take my clients to a space of saying, let's imagine 10 years from now, where are you? What are you doing? What are you experiencing? Where are you living? Let's paint a beautiful picture. And you can even go like outside the box. It's almost like when you buy that lottery ticket and you start dreaming for a moment, like, oh my gosh, if I won $100 million, what is the first thing I would do? Right? I would buy a house in the Bahamas or whatever that is. And it can be a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what it does is it takes the mind, the brain, your body to a different space where you're like dreaming again.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you go through divorce, all of the changes, like when we get married, we don't usually think about when we're going to get divorced, right?
Yeah,
that's not where our brain is. We're like, that's never happening to me. And so you didn't expect it. Again, whether you requested it, whether you are the one initiating or whether, somebody else is, it still is that place of like, wait a minute, but now what? And I'd love to say this phrase, so what, now what?
Yeah.
So what, you're going through divorce, now what? What beautiful thing do you get to create out of your life, and how do you move forward?
Yeah. I love that, because when I sit down with my clients, I remind them, this is just a chapter.
Yes.
Like, even though maybe you're consulting with me for the initial consultation, or maybe we're in the middle of preparing for mediation or litigation, I remind them that I'm not going to be in your life forever, right?
No.
This is a temporary
Thank God.
situation. This is a temporary relationship.
Yes.
Now, it may be a couple years, but it's still temporary because this chapter is just that. It's a chapter. And what I want to do and what my team wants to do is, from the legal perspective, utilize this chapter to create the best start of the next chapter.
Yes.
That you are on a flight pattern to take off into that next chapter.
I love that so much. And yeah, you have such a great team. And just even on your website, I love the mantra and everything, just how you've set it up to help people, move forward in that way, that's the focus.
Yeah. And so that actually brings me to our final point, really, is how does a divorce coach and an attorney, family law attorney, work together when they're helping a client?
I think the best way, and it depends on the attorney. I'm willing to come in and sit, through a meeting if the client and the attorney are okay with that, to just kind of help take notes about the things that need to be gathered if the person is not in a great emotional space, just to be there as emotional support. We have emotional support dogs. You can have an emotional support coach. Okay, so those are some of the ways, but also in the aftermath, right? Like even if the attorney sends me an email and says, "Hey, here are the things that we need to gather for this client," or they have a housing need. Can you connect them with a real estate agent that's trusted? You know what? They really are suffering from severe depression. They need to reach out to a therapist or a counselor. Do you have someone in your Rolodex, in your black book, that you can send them out to, right? Yeah. Some of those things that are logistically based, that are not really law based, I work with the attorney to say like, hey, how can I step in and help this particular client? And then reaching out and helping them kind of find those people within the neighborhood, if you will.
Yeah. And I have had more than once the reality conversations with my clients. And I can think of one big example is, are you staying in the former marital residence or are you moving? And unfortunately, there is often the situation that neither side can afford the former marital residence.
Yeah.
And yes, I can do all the legal paperwork to make sure, okay, we get it listed for sale. There's deadlines in a legal perspective. There's legal documents that need to be drafted. There's all this stuff that is associated with getting both of the parties out of the house, getting the house sold, getting the proceeds distributed. And as an attorney, I'm really good at the legal side. But on the emotional side, on the logistical side, as to your notes earlier, those are things that you don't need an attorney for. And I often tell people, I'm like, don't pay me my hourly rate as an attorney to help you find an apartment. Right?
No,
or how
true.
to figure out what retirement tools are out there, or how to just deal with the emotional side of leaving the house that maybe you raised your children in, maybe you customize the house to your liking with your soon-to-be ex, all of these other pieces. How do you approach that on your side as a divorce coach?
Yeah, I think, again, it's just connecting them with resources. I have a lot of people that will go into the house and help you pack up, that have those skills, there's a lot of logistics involved in moving.
Yeah.
And then you add on the fact that you're, again, leaving like maybe your favorite house ever, your dream house, and you're going through divorce and your kids are upset about it. There's just a lot of those things that, people need to talk it out. They need to have somebody help them write the list of what needs to be done next, right? Like, how do we split up the dishes, or like whatever it is. So I think just coming alongside them and connecting them with resources and then supporting them emotionally.
Yeah, that's huge. And let me kind of talk on the fee side of it. Because one pushback I have had when I've tried to encourage a client to consult with a divorce coach and work with a divorce coach is, well, attorneys are expensive. I'm like, I know, we're not cheap. I get it. But there's the division of responsibilities if it's not just the attorney or the law firm helping this client.
Right.
And how, financially speaking, it can actually benefit having a divorce coach.
Yes. No, absolutely. A divorce coach's rate is way lower than a divorce attorney. So do the math on that, right? Yeah. But, again, I think for me personally, the way that I run my company, I have a very small fee to meet with you at the beginning to find out if we can work together. And in that meeting, it's a 30-minute meeting. In that meeting, I'm already going to start giving you tools to help you. So even if we meet for those 30 minutes and you're like, okay, this is enough, I've got some stuff to get me started, I feel good because, again, I do this because I love people. I also want to get paid, but I love people. I want you to do well, through divorce. So I give a lot of tools away in the beginning. And then after that, I really ask that if you're going to work with me, we do a 3-month commitment. It's one flat fee. You have 24/7 access to me during that 3 months. Sounds crazy. I've never had anybody abuse it.
Yeah.
But I have the Voxer app, which is kind of a walkie-talkie app back and forth where you can leave a message, and I promise that I'll get back to you within a 3 to 6 hour window. Now, again, overnight, that can be a little bit crazy, but
Sure.
but I understand that, especially even with therapists, it's like, oh, well, my appointment is next week at 2:00. Well, that's not necessarily where life is happening, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You don't know that. You may have a crazy blowout, frustrated conversation with your soon-to-be ex that you really need support in, or you need to respond to an email or a text message that you want to make sure that you word the right way. That's where I'm there to kind of support you through the middle of that. And again, it's not like an hourly thing. It's like, here's the flat rate for 3 months, split out into however you want to split it. But it will definitely save you money, time, and emotions by working with me.
Yeah. And that's huge because our office is open 9 to 5. We have more than one family law client per attorney.
Yes.
We do have cases that go to court, and it's not a cop-out when we say we're not able to return the call immediately or answer your call when a client calls in. And the reason why is we're literally in a courtroom or we're physically in a mediation working on another client case.
Yeah.
And obviously, unless we're like the family's private attorney, and which, hey, if there's any families out there that just want to bring me in-house to their family financials, that'll make me running a business a lot easier.
Right.
But on the flip side, clients want that, right? Because, they only want to be charged for legal services when we're actively providing the legal service.
Yes.
So you don't need us to respond at 11 o'clock at night. You don't need us to respond on a Sunday afternoon when we're regrouping ourselves to mentally take on, come Monday morning, our 20, 30, 40 different family law cases.
Definitely.
And vice versa. Yeah, someone who can actually talk you through that emotional state that you're feeling because maybe your child acted out because they didn't want to go to the other parent's house.
Yes.
Or this is your last week in the former marital residence and you're just having those feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point,
the overwhelm.
Your therapist appointment is not until after the move, right?
Like,
it's having that person that a lot of clients really need from a mental health standpoint, and just from a life coach standpoint.
Absolutely.
To help them through that conversation.
Yeah. You just brought me back. I just remembered sending this not crazy email, but in my process, I remember writing this, well, he said this and he did this and he didn't bring the kids back at the right time. And I was like, I look back at that now. I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I doing?
Yeah.
This is why I do what I do. Don't send those. And I always say, don't buy your attorney the fast pass to your emotional roller coaster. Mm-hmm. That's a really expensive fast pass. Yeah. I'm telling you.
Extremely.
And again, it's just how, reach out to me. Tell me all the things. You can cuss, you can be upset, you can call them all the names in the book if you need to. You can vent. I'm going to listen and I'm going to say, okay, take a deep breath. Now what are we going to do? Yeah. Let's calm down. You know? And a lot of times we don't surround ourselves with friends or family members that can help us do that, right? They're like, oh yeah, they are bad. She is bad.
Egg them on.
And it makes it worse. So I'm the neutral. Yeah. I'm here to help you make the best decision.
And I think that's so important. My final note on that relationship with a client and an attorney and a divorce coach is if we're able to stay as level-headed as possible in this very difficult situation. I don't care if you are the lead surgeon at a hospital or you are, a part-time substitute teacher. It's going to be hard for you to go through the divorce process. Yes. And if we're able to maintain that level head with all of these resources, not only does it make the whole process mentally more palatable, but I would argue it also makes it more likely that we're able to reach an amicable resolution so we don't end up in 6 months, 9 months, a year in a courtroom slinging mud with the very
reason.
For no reason,
for no
right?
reason.
For no reason that's actually helpful.
Right.
And wait for it. If you have children together, the very next day when your child has a soccer game, you have to see that person.
Hi.
Yeah,
Yep.
you may be like giving the side eye because you're on other sides of the soccer field, right? You're in different bleachers.
That's reality.
Right?
That's reality.
And it gets so awkward and it just makes it awkward for your child, anyone around. And you're expected in our current situation, right? Our current judicial system to be amicable, even though you're just mudslinging in a courtroom.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's shifting too.
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with your mindset around the two different spaces? Or how do I deal with seeing my ex on the ball field?
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I manage those emotions? It feels really weird and, strange. But like, what are some things that you can do to kind of shift that? So I love that you brought that up because that's not talked about a lot. But it's hard.
It isn't.
Yeah, the real life side of what's happening.
Yeah, agreed. Lynn, we've gathered so much useful information today. Where can people find you to learn more?
Yeah, well, one of the first ways you could reach out to me is on Instagram at charlottesdivorcecoach.com. I would say .com, but no, that would just be on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then at my email address is lynn@aloracoaching.com. And you can just send me, or you could reach out to Theresa. She knows how to find me.
Yes. I have multiple means of contact.
Yes. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to keep you from all your clients that you have a list to help with because I'm sure you have a phone call already while we've been recording this podcast.
For sure.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today on the Legal Lounge, and we hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com. Or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.